At its peak, Marvel was perhaps the most dominant movie franchise and studio brand in history, with 23 films, $22 billion in sales, and for a brief moment, the Endgame series was the most profitable movie in history. Years later, they're getting horrible Rotten Tomatoes reviews, which is crazy for a studio that did Black Panther and other great movies. Disney is reportedly losing $200 million a year on the brand, and their movie, The Marvels, opened to the worst numbers in the franchise's history. How did Marvel go from a franchise that was so dominant to one that could barely fill a theater, and each new release was like ho-hum? This video is the rise and fall of Marvel. Avengers! Today's video is sponsored by Cometeer. More on them later. How we got here actually starts back in the very beginning, in the golden era of comic books. The whole thing originally started as a brand called Timely Publications back in 1939, and it kind of limped along like the rest of the comic book franchises did, until in 1961, a writer named Stan Lee entered the picture. It was a radical idea at the time, but he made superheroes flawed, human, and often broke.
We tried to make our characters have feet of clay. Now, poor Spider-Man. Okay, he's pretty good at catching bad guys, but he's apt to get an allergy attack while he's fighting. Worries about dandruff, he'll have an ingrown toenail.
You see this often in Genius. It comes in these massive spurts, like the Beatles whipping out 3 or 4 amazing once-in-a-lifetime records all at once. The same thing happened with Stan Lee and the rest of the folks in the office. Over 36 months, they created the Hulk, Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, a little guy that nobody really cared about called Iron Man, who will prove to be important later, and a number of other characters. The problem, they had done a deal with a group called Independent News, who also happened to be publishing comic books for this other firm called DC Comics. These guys had legitimately revolutionized how we think about superhero comics, and here they were, unable to tell anybody about it for now. 1968, Martin Goodman, the guy who'd started the whole thing and owned it, sold the entire thing to a big conglomerate, a chemical one actually. Martin sold it for $15 million bucks. They were named Perfect Chemical and Photographic or something like that. Just a crazy 1950s era name, like Acme Comics basically. Martin would stay on until 1972, but while he was there, he saw something that changed everything. In 1969, the distribution cap disappeared. They terminated it. Stan Lee would get promoted to publisher, and in 1972, he did something kind of crazy. He didn't publish more characters or more comic books. No. He moved out to Hollywood. His vision was that these characters would become universal, and the idea was that he would try to get them into every single format he could. Saturday morning cartoons, newspapers, anybody who would talk about them. 1966 and 67, they had managed to get different folks on Saturday morning cartoons, Spider-Man being one of them. In the 70s, they managed to get a live-action TV show done, The Incredible Hulk. The problem, TV wasn't where the real money was back then. Remember, there were only a few networks, and they could pick and choose what they wanted to pay you for your brands. The real money was going to be made in films. But there was a problem with this. Getting into films wasn't going to happen overnight. And if you wanted to do something that was going to take a decade or more and be an intensive, expensive effort to make it happen, you needed stable ownership. First, Perfect Film renamed itself to Cadence Industries, changing its idea. Remember, it's a big conglomerate making chemicals and crap. In 1986, the whole division gets spun out to New World Pictures. And then in 1989, something happens. A financier, one of the early guys who would later on be called private equity folks, came in and did a leverage buyout of Marvel and the pictures itself. And in 1989, this guy's name was Ron Perlman. Guess what he did? He put debt on the company. Perlman took the entire thing public in 1991, put even more debt on the whole thing, and then he went out on a buying spree, buying basically everything in the toy and licensing industry he could put his hands on. Card companies, sticker companies, and a toy company. That will prove pretty interesting in this story, called Toy Biz. 2 guys came with that stake. Ari Avad, who was a toy licensing genius, and another guy. His name was Earl Perlmutter, and I apologize if I mispronounced that. He was a notoriously frugal and shrewd businessman. The problem, all of this had been bought right around the times the whole comic book fad started to go out of fashion. And in 1996, Marvel declared bankruptcy. And then a new guy stepped into the picture. You may know his name still. His name is Carl Icahn. He's a financier as well, who loves doing deals, especially publicly. Between him, Perlman, and the Ari Ike combination, they started a 3-way bidding war for the assets of Marvel. Here they were fighting over the carcass, and when the dust settled, Ike and Ari emerged as the winners. One thing I've become pickier about over the years is coffee. The problem is that making a really good cup usually means grinding beans, dialing everything in, and spending far more time than I want before I've even started working. Cometeer takes a completely different approach. They've created an entirely new way to get delicious coffee at home with no machine. They precision brew coffee at 10 times strength, then flash freeze it to lock in the flavor and freshness. The coffee comes from award-winning roasters like Onyx, Counterculture, and Intelligentsia. It ships straight to your door in recyclable aluminum capsules, and all you have to do is melt the coffee puck for any drink you like, hot, iced, espresso style. No machine is required, and the part I like is the flexibility. If I want hot coffee, I just peel the lid, pop out the puck with the eject button, and melt it with hot water. If I want an iced latte, I add milk and ice first, then pour a thawed capsule over it. Or if I just want an iced coffee, it's water and ice. Same coffee, different drinks in seconds. And they have dozens of different roasts to choose from. My favorite is the Java from Equator Roaster. The quality of these little capsules is shocking. Now I understand why so many people are ditching their machines for these. If you haven't tried Cometeer yet, you can get $20 off your first order by going to cometeer.com/Michael Girdley or use the link in the description. There was a problem. In order to survive this bankruptcy, they had sold off the best characters. Men in Fantastic Four went to Fox, the Hulks went to Universal, Spider-Man went to Sony, reportedly for under $10 million. Reportedly, Marvel also offered Sony the entire of the remaining character library for just $25 million. Was Marvel desperate, and they were willing to sell off the Black Panther, Iron Man, the Avengers, all of them, for a fire sale price. And Sony didn't see the vision. Those sold off characters started making the other studios rich. Blade in 1998, X-Men in 2000 with Fox, Spider-Man in 2002 crossed $800 million. Studios were printing money with these characters. Marvel was getting piddly royalty checks. There's a great way to learn a business lesson. It's to watch somebody else kick your ass. And here Perlmutter and his team realized they were in the wrong business. They shouldn't be licensing. They should be making the movies. They called on a guy named David Meisel, M-A-I-S-E-L is how you say it. He went in and said, hey, I'll be the guy. Let's make these movies and stop just collecting this chump change. But there was a problem. The balance sheet for Marvel totally sucked. They just crawled out of bankruptcy, and making a movie was going to cost $150 million or more. 2005, Meisel went and leveraged the one asset that Marvel still had, these remaining characters, and they put up about 10 of them as collateral from Merrill Lynch, who agreed to loan them $525 million on a line of credit. Straight cash, homie. There was a problem with all this. If those movies flopped or they didn't make money or they ran out of money, the entire business of Marvel would fall apart. They would lose those characters for good. They would go to somebody else. Imagine this whole situation as a poker table. They had already gambled away Spider-Man and let somebody else make all the money from that. And all they had left was a few assets that nobody cared about, like Iron Man. They just decided to push all their chips into the center of the table. Turns out Marvel, even with its $525 million, was still thinking too small. And that was brought to their attention by a new executive, a guy named Kevin Feige. Feige was one of the types of guys who had grown up with comics. And they were the types of folks who would come in during this era of comic book peak in mass media and think about it entirely differently and make it amazing, frankly. And his vision was something nobody had ever done. When he started with Marvel Studios in 2007, the idea was to create a shared cinematic universe where all these characters from all these different comic books would be interacting with each other and intersecting across massive storylines. There was a problem. He still reported to Perlmutter, and he was going to have to convince the aging bosses at this point, who had already just bet the entire company on a loan, that they needed to go even further in on something that had never been done before. And the thing that happens in big corporations is if you make them a lot of money, if you create a hit, suddenly you have a lot of leverage and a lot of leeway. That's exactly what Kevin needed. That movie to come was the Iron Man movie, and they were about to swing from the fences, because Jon Favreau, the director, wanted to make a hugely risky casting decision and bring in a troubled actor named Robert Downey Jr. There's no doubt that Downey was a brilliant actor. He'd been in movies, but there was a problem. He'd had years of drug addiction, being volatile, and here was an entire studio betting their entire future on whether one guy could hold it together. Favreau argued that Robert Downey Jr.'s arc was Iron Man's arc. Here's a guy who had gone to the very bottom with drugs and all these problems, being disruptive, showing a series of redemptions. And that was what they needed in Tony Stark, somebody who'd lived it. He had so much leverage over Downey that reportedly Terrence Howard was paid double what he was paid to be in the movie. And Terrence wasn't even the star. Normally at these moments I have a hat sponsor, but today We're gonna have a view sponsor. It's our company, Bedrock. If you're buying a business and you want somebody to come in and make sure the seller's not lying to you about the numbers and the finances, call Bedrock. Girdley.com/Bedrock. America. There's a lot of this. It's just gorgeous. Get out and see it, people. There was also a genius in the way Favreau let Downey act on screen, including going down to ad-libbing.
I am Iron Man.
Actually, Downey saying that he was Iron Man. In the comics themselves, he actually keeps his identity a secret. And here they were, just changing things, even when it wasn't in the script. Iron Man was released, it grossed $585 million, a home run. Setting up the stage for the entire universe, Nick Fury walks in.
I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
Here at this moment, Marvel had the perfect formula, a small team with a big vision, able to act nimble. And that was about to change, because Walt Disney Company, Disney itself, was about to enter the picture. Watching all this from Burbank, California, was Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney. In 2009, they would buy Marvel for $4.24 billion. Wall Street analysts absolutely hated it, saying he had overpaid for a comic book company. But Iger didn't just get the IP itself and the Marvel name and all the characters. He also got the people. Ike Perlmutter was still running the show, and Feige, he was still in the picture, running the stuff. A lot of times the value in businesses is not just the intangible assets, it's the people too. And that's what they got. Feige continued building out his vision of the entire saga across all of the different franchises, eventually culminating in a movie that would be the Infinity Saga. What started was perhaps the hottest run for any franchise in movie history. Avengers did $1.5 billion, Black Panther $1.4 billion, got nominated for Best Picture, Infinity War did $2 billion, and Endgame $2.8 billion. Guardians of the Galaxy, a tongue-in-cheek film with a talking tree, did $773 million. I love that movie. Across 23 films, the Infinity Saga would gross $22 billion. Fresh off all this, Feige was able to take the Thor Ragnarok script and give it to an indie director, turn it into actually something pretty funny and smart. And it worked. The whole Marvel thing worked at the time because it was the opposite of a content factory. They let the individual directors have creative control, Feige kept control of the vision, and everything just kept humming. And everybody was happy because they were making tons of money. This is a kind of crazy contrast because the fact that Disney let these guys basically operate independently without meddling and getting all the bean counters and spreadsheets involved totally worked. And other things they owned, like Pixar, it didn't. The suits would show up, ruin the stories, dumb everything down, or optimize for crazy stuff like trying to sell more toys. We saw this in the story about Cartoon Network. It's precisely how it could go wrong. But for Marvel, it didn't. That would only last for so long. And by 2015, Feige was so frustrated with the suits starting to pressure and come into everything that he reportedly was considering leaving Marvel. One side you had Perlmutter, who was the penny pinching head of stuff, coming down on Feige. The tension there between creativity and cutting costs, well, it was real. And Disney was going to have to pick a side. And that's why they did. And frankly, I'm glad they kind of did it because it's why this video exists. In 2015, Disney would pull Marvel Studios out from under Perlmutter and have it report even higher to the chairman of the entire studio operation for Disney. Perlmutter kept TV, the licensing, and the comics and the toys. Feige, well, he was now part of the bigger thing, the studio. Unshackled by the penny pinching, what came next was the hottest run of 4 movies in the history of, well, cinema. Civil War, Black Panther, Infinity War, Endgame. Marvel's greatest era happened precisely because they stopped penny pinching and let the creative keep doing his thing. The problem with stories. Eventually they have to end.
Iron Man.
And you only have so much story that you can tell the characters. Remember, a great story is a character arc where people make a change, you get invested in them as an audience, and then eventually they make that change. Luke Skywalker can only find himself once. The second or third time, well, you were not emotionally invested. The Endgame movie would be part of this. Iron Man would die, Captain America would retire, 2 of the most beloved characters. And here we were, left without them. These 2 characters had anchored almost every single one of the hit stories since 2008. And here was Marvel, painting themselves into a corner. It's one of the hardest things to do as a winner. How do you win even more? And you see this often with people who are serial entrepreneurs or creatives. You have a staggering work of genius, and then you have to figure out how to go somewhere from there. Normally the way to do that is to slow down, find the next Iron Man. But that's not what happened next. They did the opposite. November 12th, 2019, something else would happen. The streaming wars would be something that Disney decided to face, and they created Disney Plus. These streaming businesses need a relentless supply of content in order to justify the valuations and stock price and investment by the companies. So that meant that Disney had to go mine its content library, everything from Star Wars to Marvel. I remember how Marvel at this point had worked well because the creatives had stayed in control. They hadn't become a content machine. But here was Disney's decision to get into streaming, meaning that suddenly Marvel was becoming precisely the opposite of what it was. Just churning out thing after thing in support of more content for streaming. Here was a movie franchise that had worked incredibly well, doing a handful of marquee films each individual year with precision and great storytelling. Here they were, churning out serial TV shows and diluting the brand.
Yeah, come at me, bro!
WandaVision, Loki, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Secret Invasion, each budgeted north of $150 million, and I didn't watch any of them. My family did. They would usually watch 1 or 2 episodes because they're kind of more comic book people than I am, and then they'd stop watching them. In the first 11 years, Marvel produced roughly 3,800 minutes of content across 23 films. In the 2 years following the Disney Plus launch, Marvel produced over 4,500 minutes, more content in 2 years than in the previous decade. There's no way that somebody who's even a superhero, He-Man combined with Spider-Man, could stay on top of all that and make sure it stayed good. In 2021, rumors started to come out of the studio of impossible deadlines, VFX artists reporting that corners were being cut, and fans, they were starting to read this stuff. Films that would come out, Ant-Man, She-Hulk, they would look almost like they were done on home computers. If you're creating a fantasy world for people, well, first kind of table stakes are you have to make it believable. And here it was, looking like somebody had done AI generation of the video on their phone or something. And this is where the cracks started to show from the streaming pressure in the films themselves. In 2022, Thor Ragnarok opened to, at best, mixed reviews. Part of the problem, the director, who's basically kind of an artist himself and has done some interesting movies, basically created something that didn't look anything else like the MCU. Didn't fit. He wasn't really bringing anything new to the picture. It felt just like rehashing of the same kind of shtick that people were just tired of. A lot of times the product of a company is the product of the happiness of its employees. And in 2023, all the VFX artists inside of Marvel decided to unionize. The first department ever to do so. People don't unionize when they're super duper happy with the situation. Shortly thereafter, the studio would bring out the film The Marvels, but they did something kind of crazy. To understand it, you had to have watched a couple of the TV shows on Disney Plus, WandaVision and stuff like that. Here's the deal. People do not want entertainment to require homework before you go into the theater. Iron Man had grossed $318 million in 2008. Guess what it didn't require? Any prep work. The Marvels would generate just $80 million. In 2023, Feige was overseeing dozens of simultaneous productions for TV, streaming, and movies. There's no way one guy, no matter the genius, could stay up to all that. Creativity at its core and the genius of storytelling is a very limited thing. It's got to come from the inside of a person. It's not a systematized thing. You can't do Henry Ford mass production of content and expect it to feel like custom crafted Ferraris. But there was a bigger problem going on. Disney Plus was hemorrhaging money for Disney. And I hadn't mentioned it, but Bob Iger, the guy who had originally bought Marvel, he had retired. And in 2022, Disney fired their new CEO, the one who'd been overseeing the entire Disney Plus and Marvel debacle, and brought back Iger out of retirement. Kind of like Captain America coming out of retirement, but West Coast, Hollywood, LA guy with a good tan. So, I don't know, maybe you get the parallel. In the end, look, I'm gonna get killed on this video for mispronouncing stuff or getting some detail wrong in the Marvel universe. Here's the reality. I'm more of a Star Trek guy, so if you're gonna kill me, just do it in the comments, but please be nice. Quantumania failed. The Marvels reportedly totally flopped, like I talked about. They lost $200 million on it at Disney, and Rotten Tomatoes, and not to mention other YouTubers who do reviews on all this Marvel stuff.
Brie Larson gets to sing and dance.
Give me a chance here before it gets so...
Oh man, horrible. People would say that this is an era in which people are getting tired of superheroes. But here's the thing. Franchises like Deadpool and others still making money. Guardians 3, also a hit. What was the difference? Stories. So while somebody might justify blaming the audience for not wanting to watch these things, If you're not telling great stories with likable characters, you're not going to go anywhere. By 2023, Bob Iger would come out and say the quiet part out loud, that they'd made too much Marvel content, it had diluted the brand, and hurt the quality. And that's where you find Marvel today. And by the way, that's also where the Star Wars franchise is, having to pull back, rethink things, and hopefully go back to what worked a decade or so ago. If you look at the Marvel story, it's easy to blame the audience. That's what you hear some, and it's natural to do if you're inside of a business. And by the way, audience in this situation is customer.
I don't get it.
And look, I've been there before. You see the greatness of your product or service, and you look out and you're like, why isn't the audience buying this? Why isn't the customer buying this? They must be idiots. They just don't understand. And I hear this from entrepreneurs, large or small, and small businesses or big businesses, where I'll hear them talk with almost disdain about their customers. These people just don't get it. They don't understand. They're idiots. In reality, whether you're Marvel or a local small coffee shop or anything in between, it's never the customer's fault that they don't want your thing. It's your fault that you either haven't given them something they wanted or convinced them through good marketing and messaging as to why they should want it. And I think if you hear somebody blaming the customer, they should always do the thing that you do naturally when you have the finger and the four fingers point back at you. The reality is the moment you point the finger and blame something on your customer, you should look back at yourself and ask, what should I be doing better? In the end, this is the story of the rise and fall of Marvel. Just like Star Wars or Star Trek or any of these struggling franchises, I hope they come back. The world needs more like Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk, and these guys. Pretty good role models in the end. All right, if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below and encourage me to make more.